Vorbește, te rog.
Vei zice? Vei zice? Vei zice? Super. Okay, mai presupun că și pentru.
Ți-am zis.
Deja e live.
Ok. Hai să vedem și Simon.
Da. Să citești tu întrebările.
Deci, încep în engleză. Ok. Hello everyone, welcome to today's workshop. Introduction to Python. My name is Introduction to Python Programming. My name is Andrei, and today's host. Today we're gonna learn the basics of programming and Python. And yeah, Python is a very interesting and sort of easy programming language, at least from a syntactic point of view. I have also prepared some materials. Yeah. Okay.
And the moment that
Wait. Yeah. There's some ideas that I will be sending them over our Discord server. And yeah, and we shall begin. We'll start with a quick setup. So if you don't have Python already installed, I suggest checking our tutorial. Also, okay. It's okay. Okay.
whatever links you have to share, you can send them to Paul, and I can Paul can post them on the chat.
Oh, okay. Okay. Good. So, first of all, you will need to install Python. As if you do not have it already installed. After that, you'll have to verify the installation. And moving on, you will need to install Python, but for this tutorial, we will also use Google Colab. So if you're not familiar, I'll show you my seconds. And you also have a quick tutorial of how to create a project in Python. So yeah. I'll do really quickly to our first lesson. So for programming, we have something really useful and handy, and they're called like variables. In programming, a variable is used to store information that can be used later in your program. You can think of a variable as a variable container in your computer's memory for a specific data. In Python, to create variables, we just have to specify the name of the variable and its value. We have a really short example. And of course, every variable can store different types of data. Some of them are integers, aka whole numbers, floats, aka real numbers or decimal numbers, like such as 1.5 or 3.1. Okay. Strings, which are basically chunks of space, Boolean values, and also called values. They're either true or false. Working with variables. Of course, we use variables in expressions and also in types. I'll show you really quick an example. Okay, so for example, I can declare a variable, and let's just say I have a name variable, and I set this value of to a string. A string is marked by these double quotes, and then we can just print it. By the way, this is Google Column. It's our support for running Python programs and Jupyter notebooks. If you do not know what a Jupyter notebook is, they're basically Python files that allow us to execute Python code. But the difference between a .py file and IPNG file is that the code is divided in cells that can be run individually, such as these ones. Okay. We can also update a variable, variables data, just like here. Okay. Now, a handy trick about strings is that we can concatenate them. What does concatenation mean? So let's just say I have a variable name and a variable surname. And a third variable called full name. Now if we take this, oops. Okay. Yeah, so basically concatenation means that we can take two or more strings and basically merge them into a single string. I can also add a brief space. when, by the way, to run a PNP cell, we can just we can just shift plus we can just use shift plus enter or just use the okay. Moving on, we have a more complex disorder calculation, and those are arrays. Arrays basically contain multiple values. Like usually um, a list of five and a list of values. So okay, in order to access data from a list, we can just use an index. Every single list has an index that points to a specific value from within that list. You can see in this example, we have numbers and names. Lists are using values. Okay. And in order to print something from a list, we can just use the index operator and specify the index. In the case of list, the index operator is a whole number starting from 0. Okay, let's some code action. Let's just say I have these series and support. And in order to get the first element, I can just say between list 1, 0. And here we have our first element. Same goes for the other elements. For example, if I want to paint the last element, I can just say list 1, 8. Okay. Now, another type of data are tuples. A tuple is similar to a list, but we say that it is immutable, which means that once we created that list, we cannot modify it anymore. Yeah, tuples are often used when we want to put data that should not be modified. It's really similar to a list. We can access its values, elements, similar to the basic array or list, but we cannot modify it. Another type of data, the complex type of data, is our dictionaries. Dictionaries are the same.
주택 부지가
Okay. Uh, yeah, so moving on to dictionaries. The difference between a dictionary and a list is that a dictionary stores values using key pair values, such as in words. So in our case, user has two elements. One with the key name and its value Alice, and one with the age key and its value 22. Um, the main difference is that it's how we access elements in dictionaries. So in dictionaries, we can just basically specify the key that we need to be part here. And if we want to change the value of name, you can just say user name using that bubbles. Okay. Dictionaries are useful when we want to label our data in order to be more explicit. And here we have a short exercise which you can use to practice. And yeah, also a few things about calculation. Okay, let's move on to our next lesson, conditionals. Conditionals allow program to make decisions based on a certain conditions. Yeah, they are very important because they allow program to be more complex and do more meaningful stuff. The basic syntax is that so in our example, we have a variable age, and we can just use the if keyword. Here we specify our expression of condition. In our case, age needs to be more more than 18, higher than 18. And if they are higher, if their age is higher than 18, then we can just bring the text URL under control. Okay. Moving on, we have Boolean expressions. So Boolean expressions return a Boolean value. So it means that it's either true or false. Here we have 18 examples. So let's just say we have a variable x that has the value 10. And if we want to verify some expressions based on a variable, we can just bring them directly. If it's higher than 5, or if x is equal to 10, or if x is less than 3. Okay. Moving on, we have something, yeah, I can say that it's a any feature. ES statement or ES keyword. ES keyword allows our program to allows our program to have a secondary case in a case if our condition is not met. So let's just say that we're not yet over in and in this case, we want to claim that we are a minor. We can just specify the else case and the block of code that we want to run when yes, when we have our age is less than 18. There's also a keyword ME, and we can specify secondary conditions multiple conditions. If the first condition isn't met, then we can regulate with something else. Then in the end, we can just say that uh, if these are not met, we will gain these legs. We also have something useful called the comparison operators, which you've already seen in these expressions. So we have equal to, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. We also have logical operators. So basically, logical operators allow us to combine multiple expressions into a single expression, such as a good example is the AND operator, which translates to if this and this are true, then we will run this code. The operator basically just says that if this always is true, then we will run the code. The two difference between the AND operator and the OR operator is that um, in the case of the AND operator, both have to be true. For the OR operator, we just need one of them to be true. And the NOT operator, or the negation operator, just says that whatever it is, take the opposites of it. So if in this case, if age is not higher or equal than 18, so if the age is not higher or equal than 18, then it's less. So that's basically the relation of these operators. And here we have another example. And a short exercise if you want to practice. Moving on to our next lesson, loops. So basically loops allows us to repeat a certain block of code multiple times. So this way we don't have to rewrite that specific block of code. For example, if we want to run it, I don't know, 100 times, then we can just use a loop and run it for 100 times without writing, I don't know, 200 lines of code. The first example is a for loop. So the syntax of a for loop is that you just say for a variable in this example, we just use the range function, which basically iterates to the values from one, no, from 0 to n value. And in this case, we'll just print this variable. Yeah, this is the output. Range is here, range function is pretty handy because you can do different intervals of numbers, such as these ones. If we just want to go from 0 to a number, we can say range of n plus 1. If we want to have a lower limit and number limit, then we can specify those two. And in this case, when we have two parameters, we have the lower limit, the upper limit, and the step. In this case, it's just contains 0, 2, 4, 6, and 8. The while loop is another type of loop. And it basically is very similar to the for loop. but it only runs as long as a condition is true. Yeah, here you have an example where you have a variable count, and we basically say while this variable is less than 5, you print it and increment its value by 1. And we can do this by saying count equals to count plus 1. There's also infinite loops if you ever need to learn programming until kind of a specific time. Um, you can just say word to and this will run forever. But yeah, we usually want to wait. It's here you have another exercise, and then we can solve one really quick. So let's try the first exercise. We're gonna write the program that takes numbers from 1 to 10. Okay. So I'm just gonna say I'll use the following. I'd say for each page. One then the third is only 5. And here we have all of the numbers from 1 to 10. If we want to specify the step, we can just say, I don't know, by default the stage is 1, so it increments by 1. But I don't know, let's just say that we want to go from 3 to 3. And here we have the numbers 1, 4, 7, and 10. Okay. Moving on to functions. Functions are a really handy concept. So it basically allows us to write a code of code, and we can run it whenever we want to use it in our program. They also help us to avoid repeating code and organize our program better. In order to define a function, we will just use the def keyword followed by the function begin. And this so in this case, we have a function called wave, and all we want this function to do is to just gain error. To call a function, we'll just say its name and modify this. Alright, to show an example. So this I'll just write this function that wave. And I just think hello. Now exactly this platform's gonna be printed. But if I say it, we can see that it means it successfully the text hello. We can also have parameters. So functions can basically take inputs. And yeah, they are the parameters. They allow us to pass data to a function and basically to start with a function with that specific data. For example, in our read function, we can have a parameter called name, and we can just make hello plus or name. I will show you. Okay, let's start with and I'm going to say the minus and replace. Then basically we calculate variables. Capacity and function, which is values dot manifest. Okay. Each value is separated by a comma. Yeah, we have L on the side. Okay. Um, in cases, ordinary cases and for times when we won't know exactly how many parameters we need. So in this case, we can just use the box keyword. And it basically gives us a list with values. In our example, we have the following get numbers function, and we have the args keyword. Keyword as a compiler. Um, Now, in this is again we want to take the sum of our specified values. So that in the sum flows. For this action that a total value initiated with the value 0. And then we can just iterate through the paths list. So it's a number in us. We can add the total variable number. And then we can just see from the value using the return keyword. This is example. So you can see how it does. Okay, and now we can specify the list as a as its value. And here we have some of our numbers. We can also specify names for our variables, and the difference is that they can be stored as key value pairs. So basically, a dictionary. Here we have an example, and here's the usage. Okay, when it comes to functions, we also have recursive functions. And basically, recursive functions are functions that call themselves in their block of code. An example is the countdown function, where we have our base case and our main code. So the structure of a recursive function is that we have a base case, which has a predefined value. And then we have the other part of our code here in the next statement. Okay. Stop this. We can see how it works. Okay, now if I count down of 5, it should be the numbers with like 1 and recursive functions are quite useful, but we don't really use them. Very useful when you want to break a problem into small problems and solve them individually. Okay. And yeah, you can also return values, but using that before. And here we will have some exercises if you want to practice. Okay. Now that's it with the theoretical part of our workshop. Here we have a small project that you can build. Um, yeah, so basically, the project is to build a list number game. And we have two steps prepared. You just need to follow them. Okay. Um, so how it works is that it generates a number. It asks the user to guess the number. And we then we can just tell the user if the number is too high or too low, depending on the number that the user wrote. And we'll just repeat this until the user guesses correctly. No, I'm not gonna run the home program. We have the information here, but I can show you how it works. So, yeah, we did it. Basically, we're something like this. If it's too low, then we can run first. And if it's too high, and so on and so forth, and then it guesses on that. Um, so, additionally, you have the challenges that you can give. And you can do one of them or all of them depending on how you want to practice or if you want to practice more. I also sent pretty running programs for these challenges, but I really recommend to try it yourself first so you can practice your knowledge better by. And then you also have a pronunciation. Yeah. So this was the workshop. Thank you for listening, and I hope you found it useful. And yeah, that's it.